Yo, what is up, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. It is NFL Sunday, so a lot of you probably are watching NFL football. As you can see, wearing my Cowboys jersey, I am a Cowboys fan. I am sorry, and I just watched the Cowboys get a win, and then I was thinking to myself, do I want to keep watching football, or do I want to go rant about Luguentz Dort for about 10 minutes? And I chose the second one. So here I am to talk to you about Luguentz Dort and just how good Dort is. If you've watched this channel, if you've watched Thunder games, you probably have a pretty good idea, but I thought it would be kind of a cool opportunity to go in, break down some of the numbers, and really just show how good he is, and more importantly, how he has developed and improved so drastically over the course of his 3 seasons. So I'm going to break it down and kind of illustrate to you what is so special about Lu Dort and why it's so hard to put a ceiling on him as a player. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And if you always want to, you can subscribe pretty easily. I hope you don't, but it's always an option. So, going to go ahead and get started with, I'm going to show you the numbers between his first, second, and third season. So in his first season, he averaged around 7 points per game, shot about 39.4% from the field, and 29.7% from 3. Not great numbers. It was his first season as an undrafted rookie, coming into a roster that was pretty well established with a lot of offensive threats. You had Chris Paul, Shea, Gallo. It was a pretty well-established roster, and so Dort kind of slides in and just plays that defender, Andre Roberson type role, which I think is what a lot of people saw him as in that first season. They looked at him as this great defensive stopper with a pretty weak offensive game. Then you flash forward to the next season. Last year, Dort averaged 14 points per game, shot 38.7% from the field, and 34% from 3. The 34% number is the big one that jumps out. He jumped about 5.4% from the last season, which is very impressive for a guy coming into his second year, especially when you kind of take into account that the season before, he had a guy like Chris Paul delivering him a lot of his shots. He took a lot of advantage of the offseason, he really worked on his game, and he found kind of a role as a 3-and-D type player. Now coming into this year, Dort has went from 7 points to 14 points to now 17.4 points per game, which is top 50 in the league. 43.4% from the field, and shooting about 34% from 3, right around his mark from last season at this point. Dort is showing out. He has continued to develop and become our second best offensive player at this point, behind Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And what he has shown so far has been super impressive. Like those numbers, he continues to get better and better and better. Let's talk about some of the specific things from this season that have really shown. First, Lu Dort, of course, when you look at him, the first thing that you kind of look at is his 3-point percentage and his 3-point shooting, because that's the biggest thing. People look at 3-and-D type players, and being able to stretch the floor as a defensive player is super important if you're going to put him in a lineup next to a guy like Shai, who really thrives getting to the basket and attacking downhill. You need guys that can kind of space the floor around him. And so Lu Dort, one of the big things that people have been looking at him to do is shoot threes. This season, Lu Dort is first in the league. In the entire NBA, this is not just like first on the Thunder, first in the West, first in the entire league in 3-point percentage on pull-up 3-pointers among all players that have shot at least 40. He's shooting 47.6% from 3 on pull-up 3-pointers, which means he took a dribble and pulled up off the dribble. That's amazing. For a guy that, for his first 2 seasons especially, a little bit less last year, but a guy who was kind of looked at first as a guy who would just catch and shoot threes. Maybe every now and again he takes an off the dribble shot, but mainly he would catch and shoot threes, and that's his way of floor spacing. Now he's shooting 48% from 3 on pull-up threes. That's amazing. And not only is he sinking them, he's sinking them more than reliably, he's sinking them at a rate that is the best in the NBA. Overall on 3-pointers, in his last 18 games, he's shooting 37.7% from 3. That's about 38% from 3 over an 18-game span. He had a really rough couple first games, around like the first 8 or so games of the season. He really just couldn't knock down his shots. But now that he's found a rhythm, now that he's kind of gotten that weird shooting slump out of the way, he is knocking them down super well. He's shooting 8 of them a game and knocking down around 38%. That's amazing. He's a legit threat from beyond, whether it's catch and shoot, whether it's off the dribble, and not only that, but he's pulling up from deeper and deeper as well. He's not just shooting in the corners or right on the line. He's a guy that can pull up the second he crosses, okay, maybe not half court, but the second he gets like within the logo into the hash mark, Dort can pull up from anywhere within that range and sink it pretty reliably. Also, alongside those numbers, he's the second longest active streak in the entire NBA of consecutive games with a 3. At 40 games in a row. He's made a 3 in 40 games in a row, which is second best in the league, only behind Steph Curry around, I think it's 156 or something like that. You know, the greatest shooter of all time. He's the only one that's ahead of Dort in 3-pointers made in consecutive games. That's amazing for a guy that so many people in like the bubble called one of the worst offensive players in the league. His 3-point shot continues to be more reliable, and the more reliable that gets, the more it's going to open up his driving lanes, which is already a strength of his. It was something that he really struggled with last season. But this season, he's shooting 66% on the rim at 97 shot attempts this season. So he's shooting them a lot, and he's shooting 66% at the rim, which is among the best in the league at the guard position. That's up 10% from last season. That's a huge jump. Dort is continuing to get better and better, not just at shooting threes, but at driving to the basket. So now he's kind of got a pretty balanced offensive attack. On the season, he drives about 10 times a game, which mixes up his play style. You don't know if he's going to pull up for three. You don't know if he's going to even shoot a mid-range jumper, which he's been working on as well. You don't know if he's going to drive to the basket, where he's super strong, gets into the body, and can really finish around the rim. And he's shooting 49% on those drives, about 3.6 shot attempts per game on those 10 drives, which is the same percentage as John Morant, a guy that a lot of people look at as an amazing finisher at the rim. He's 29th amongst guards that drive at least 3 times a game. He's ahead of Steph, Dame, Harden, CJ McCollum, Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, Devin Booker, Tyler Hero, and Fred VanVleet in that percentage. So all those guys that people look at as these elite offensive talents, most of them, in fact, pretty much all of those guys people look at as these amazing offensive talents, Lu Dort is outshooting them at the rim, every single one of them. Additionally, he's hitting free throws at a career high rate. He's shooting 84% from the free throw line. That's 28th in the league amongst players that have shot at least 75 of them. Dort shot right around like the mid 80s. That's a great sign, because if he's able to knock down free throws pretty reliably, one of the best indicators of like shooting, whether it's 3-pointers and mid-range jumpers, is free throw percentage. Guys that are scouting college players look at free throw percentage as one of the best indicators of shooting heading into the NBA. And Dort continuing to get better at free throw percentages, it shows that this shooting isn't like a fluke or anything like that. It's something that seems to be pretty consistent. He is a legitimate good shooter. He's got a solid form. He sticks to it. It's kind of clean. Like his form looks the same almost every single time. And it shows that his free throw percentage, while it's high, it can only get better alongside his other types of shooting. In addition, he's not only shooting just early in the game, he is 21st in clutch points this season. Total clutch points, not per game, total clutch points. He's ahead of Trae Young, Devin Booker, Nikola Jokic, Paul George, De'Aaron Fox, James Harden, Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, amongst many other elite players, but I couldn't keep listing guys. He's doing it in the clutch as well. He had that game against the Kings. You probably saw it, that game winner, where he locked up De'Aaron Fox on the defensive end and then stole the ball, finished at the rim for a layup to win the game. Dort is doing everything. I don't think I need to tell you about his defense. You know how good he is defensively. That's like the main thing people know about Lu Dort, is that he is an all defensive caliber guy. He's one of the better perimeter defenders in the NBA. If you don't believe me, you can ask Damian Lillard, who in a recent Q&A on Reddit listed 3 guys as the best perimeter defenders in the league. He said Ben Simmons, Drew Holiday, and Lu Dort. That shows you how guys in the league think of Lu Dort. He named him as off the top of his head. He didn't sit there and do any research or anything like that. He only thought about it for like 5 seconds. And Lu Dort was a name that came to his mind. That shows you how respected he is across the league as a perimeter defender. Not to mention the fact that he's super strong, and so he can kind of body up against bigger guys as well when they get down low. So you know how good he is defensively. All these stats that have just presented show how good he has been offensively over the course of this season and continues to get better. His improvement has been amazing. All of this, and he's only in his 3rd season and 22 years old. At this point, when I include the playoff series that he was in and all of his regular season games, he's played 121 games in his NBA career, which is less than 2 full seasons. He's been in the NBA for less than 2 full seasons, and he's improved this much. The bubble, the place where some people, like I said, called him the worst offensive player in the league during that Rocket series before he dropped 30 in Game 7, that was 16 months ago. Less than 2 years ago, Lu Dort was being called the worst offensive player in the league, and now he's a top 50 scorer in the NBA, has a consistent three-point shot. He statistically has been the best off-the-dribble three-point shooter in the league. He's finishing around the rim at one of the best rates in the league for guards. He's knocking down almost all of his free throws. He is doing everything. He's improved so much in that 16-month span. And so when people ask me, what is your ceiling for Luguentz Dort? I don't have an answer, because he continues to just keeps getting better. It's amazing. He's all defensive caliber already at age 22, and he's blossoming into a consistent and well-rounded offensive threat. He's played less than 2 full seasons of games, and he was undrafted. An undrafted player is doing all of this. And that's part of why I love Lu Dort so much as a player. So many teams passed on him. They didn't want him. He comes to OKC in his first season as an undrafted two-way player, makes a name for himself as a defensive stopper, gets signed to a full-time deal. He locks up James Harden in a first-round playoff series, drops 30 in Game 7, and over the course of these past 2 years has made his name as a defender, and now as one of the most consistent offensive players on this team. Going forward, he could be a legitimate 2 guy for this roster going forward into the future. He's that special. Lu Dort is a special talent, and he's going to just keep getting better. So, those are my thoughts on Lu Dort. I wanted to kind of make this video to rant about him a little bit, I know it's probably a lot of numbers, but I hope you were able to get the gist of kind of just how good Lu Dort has been. If you didn't know any of this, let me know what surprised you most about this video, about Lu Dort, in the comment section below. If you did make it this far, drop Lu Dort for Defensive Player of the Year in the comment section below to let me know you made it to the end. I appreciate y'all watching. I will see you all later. Real one, say it back.